So, mobile filmmaking. I've made about 5 short films now with my mobile, and it's something that I would never thought about when we first had a phone that could shoot video, because they were terrible. And slowly, since iPhone 13, when I had that cinematic mode, I was able to create something more cinematic. And from there on, I made a film every time there was a new iPhone that came out. And of course, the latest at the time of recording is iPhone 15 Pro Max. That's when they introduced Apple Log, which means that it's able to record with more information of color that you can manipulate and be flexible with and grade so cinematically, so that nothing is shot with just a bog standard iPhone color and sharpness, which just looks too digital and didn't look good. And it doesn't have to be iPhone. It can be Samsung. I've heard Samsung Ultra, that's really good as well for mobile filmmaking. So, you know, there's lots of technology that's catching up for such a small sensor and in your pocket that you can shoot a short film, at least a short film. I mean, I think that there's actually a feature film that was shot on an iPhone as well. The earlier you start practicing mobile filmmaking, the better. And I've always said, I'm gonna repeat again, if you're just starting now, you must have a phone in your hand. And it doesn't have to be iPhone 15 Pro Max. As long as it can shoot decent 1080p, use that to practice framing, to practice lighting, to practice camera movement, to practice the angle. You don't need a cinema camera to practice those things. Maybe lighting a little bit, because you know, the sensor will see light differently compared to a smaller sensor. So, but majority of cinematography can be practiced on a mobile phone. With mobile phone, it's easier. You take out your pocket, you can start shooting. Sometimes sound is pretty good as well. Obviously, sound is a different department. You do need to still get a good sound. For all films, sound is more important than the quality. Because if you have good sound, okay quality, a good story, then people will be, you know, more forgiving. But yeah, with mobile phone, if you want to go a little bit more serious, you do need a few accessories. But obviously, don't go crazy. Make it look like it's your main camera. So make it's your practice camera. Once you're comfortable with it, then you can move on to a bigger camera. So the things I would recommend is something like this, a rig. You can put it in, and you can put ND filters on there. So because obviously some things are very bright, any camera, even a phone, still need the ND filter. And you have those handles that you can take off, pull it on. There's so many of these kind of things out there. And this obviously helps you to steady your shots. And most phones have stabilization that's built in as well. That's another way that you probably don't really need the gimbal. But if you have a long tracking shot, that you have to move quite a bit, you know, from one position to this position, that's a little bit complicated. If you're just going back and forth and side, I think this is good enough. But if it is complicated or longer shots, you probably need a gimbal. But again, the phones are really light. You don't need a gimbal that supports heavy cameras. Any cheap gimbal like $50 or $100 would be decent enough for your phone. And that's when you can practice your movement. Imagine it's a normal DSLR camera or a cine camera on the gimbal, and you'll be really good at it. And once you get to the bigger camera, you'll be more comfortable. All the theories are still same when you're shooting on mobile. Plan your shots, think about the lighting, think about how you're gonna move the camera, etc. The only thing is with mobile phones, because it's a small sensor, in dark scenes, it can be a problem that it's too dark and it gets mushy and noisy. So when you're shooting a dark scene, what you should do is light it quite bright so that there's no noise, and then reduce it in post-production. Or if your camera is really good at low light, well, I actually don't know any phones are good at low light. Maybe there is, I don't know. But majority of the time there isn't, because the sensor is so small. So you wanna plan your shots so that the dark scenes are lit quite nicely. So you can't have like, I don't know, one light in the corner, then the rest room is dark. That would work on a cine camera with high dynamic range, but with a phone, at least at the time of recording, it's not going to be able to take those darkness, and you're not going to be able to see those details. So just watch out for the low light scenes. And then most phones will have an app to help you to shoot cinematic films. For example, on the iPhone, there's the Blackmagic app. I haven't used Android, but Android, I'm sure there's like something like Filmmaking, that kind of apps. But again, the theories are the same. So I'm going to go through the Blackmagic app settings that I know for my phone and what things you should watch out and what features are good and not good, so you can understand what to look out for when you do your mobile filmmaking. The app I'm using to record is the Blackmagic camera app, which is free for you to download. For the lens, I mostly shot on 24mm. If you switch to 120mm, it does get a lot darker. There's some shots I tried on that. In hindsight, I probably should have gone for the 24mm and then use the zoom feature to zoom in digitally 2 times or 4 times. But hey, it was good enough for 120mm and had to boost the ISO in the end. Frame rate per second 24, shutter speed is 48. I tried to put the ISO as low as I can and then lock the white balance at 5000 for outdoor. And this icon here lets you access different features like the zebra, which I've turned down. It'll tell me what is overexposed, 100%. And then I've also turned on the framing guide for different resolution like widescreen. Okay, going into the settings section, you'll see that I'm recording the codec in Apple ProRes 422. And then if we go into LUTs, you'll see that you have a LUT selection. You can either select the default Apple log to Rec 709, or you can actually select any of my LUTs, which I've left a link below for you to download for different kind of cinematic, cool, warm, or even nature. For the color space, I've left it on Apple log HDR. You actually later see how I grade for HDR. When you compare this screen to my other video earlier for the settings of the camera, you can see there's lots of similarities. That's why I'm saying to you, start with a mobile phone. It's a little bit simpler. You don't have to worry about the lens, etc. And once you're familiar with those settings, then you haven't spent lots of money. You probably spend zero money if you already have a phone. Then you can move on to something that you can spend money on once you're familiar with those settings. And when you're shooting mobile, another tip I want to give you is make sure you have an external battery pack that you can charge, especially those wirelessly that goes on the back of the phone, which are pretty good, because the last thing you want is running out of battery and you just can't shoot at all. And finally, I just want to show you some of the clips I've shot from some of my short films on the mobile, and I'll show you some of the mistakes I made, and I'll show you some good tips that I can give you during those shots that you can take away for your own work.
The way I look at it, Martin Luther King Jr. Park. So that set off a firestorm on social media.
Now, this short film was shot on the iPhone 13 because I remember when this first came out, it was a big thing. It got this cinematic mode where you can have shallow depth of field, and obviously it's fake because the lens isn't so big, so it's a digitalized depth of field. But what you can do is after you shoot it, doesn't matter how you shoot it, in the edit, you can choose who you want to be in focus, which is pretty cool. But you can tell it's a little bit fake around the edge of the hair, you can see that. And the image quality, it's okay, there was no log. Color grading, there's only so much you can do, and it's too sharp, too little bit kind of fake, you can tell it's not cinema. But at the time, it was really good because this cinematic mode just makes it look, blurred background. It was good. And then the way to utilize mobile filmmaking is hold it in your hand, and then it's so easy to do action. Action as in fighting, moving around, pushing like what I just did, different quick cuts, because it's not heavy. You can move around so freely. It's about how you move. As you can see, these action scenes were done quite easily with this phone, but if it was on a heavy camera, I would probably struggle and not get the shot quite right. I also shot some slow motion with this film, but that's not cinematic mode, so you can see from these shots, it's more of a phone. And I wouldn't say it's lit very well, so yeah, the more slow motion, the more you can see it's actually from a phone footage. But the slow motion with the action, you get to practice the framing, the shot, how you go from slow motion to normal speed. That was a good exercise for me, and I really loved it to able to create that using just the mobile.
station is opened. Passengers are reminded not to leave bags unattended at any time. Unattended bags may be removed by airport security.
This film was shot on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Similar kind of style, similar technology. I think the camera is a little bit better and somehow was able to grade it a little bit more cinematically. But again, all the shallow depth of field was fake. There's limitation on color as well. You can see these two shots weren't quite color matched. I don't really know why. But the funny thing is, this entire short film was shot with just me and my actors. There were 3 of us, and that's it. And we were on our way to go to France, I think. And we thought, let's shoot a film. And it was kind of spontaneous decision. We didn't have permission. We didn't have crew members because it was just me or my friend holding the phone in our hand. Even on the plane here, nobody really cared because they thought we were just making silly videos for social media. But instead, we shot this whole thing. And that just goes to show with mobile phone, there's so much flexibility. And there's no way we could pull off this film with a normal cine camera. And if you pay attention on the next scene where the actress is walking in the aisle, you'll see that actually people were looking up. Look, you see, they were like, what's going on? But again, we pulled it off. Everything in this film was all done with natural lighting. There was no lighting gear whatsoever. So you got to use your knowledge about lighting where you're shooting at the light as much as you can. For example, pointing at the window on the plane, pointing at the window on the airport, so that it doesn't look too flat. But there will be situations where you just can't control. This short film was done on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. As you can see, there's a great improvement in terms of color because that's when Apple brought in Apple Log. It shoots ProRes 422, 422 HQ, etc. And everything just looks more cinematic, but you do sacrifice the cinematic mode. So in order to get the blurred background, you have to put the phone really close to the subject, then it's slightly blurred in the back. It's slightly more realistic than the cinematic mode, which is, I guess, a little bit overly digital. But this one actually was mostly shot on the gimbal. I'm going to show you some behind the scenes footage in a bit. And then I'll also quickly show you the color grading process to make it HDR, because what you're watching right now isn't HDR because the player you have on this course platform. I know it's not a color grading masterclass which you can enroll separately, but it's good to just give you that little bit of taste of color grading using mobile phone footage. I think the thing I really struggled with this film was lighting. Again, mostly was natural lighting. It was lucky that day everything was cloudy, so the sun didn't come in and out. Remember I talked about in daylight, if you're outside, the sun is your enemy in a way if it's cloudy. But it was consistent cloudy, but there were areas a little bit darker, a little bit brighter because of trees, and I used the ND for most of the shots. Because that inconsistency of dark and bright, I wasn't able to control the right part of the ND, and you can see the little bit difference for some of the shots. But that's the only thing I struggled. But the gimbal was great, the movement, I loved it, how you follow the characters up and down. The tracking shot when I was running. This is my favorite shot by far. Okay, let's go through some of the behind the scene footage and the color grading. Where it goes pointing like that.
Well, it's too cold if you don't know.
Nice and smooth, isn't it?
Action. Would have been good to get some more shots, but I think we ran out of time.
And it started raining, so
No, the rain's okay, but no, this is really good because it's really light and it stabilized a lot of shots. And Emily was good, and everybody was good, and the guy behind the camera. Let me just pull it around. Raki, thank you for the BTS. Anything to say, Raki?
Yeah, our stuff is down there.
Oh, okay. I wanted to grade this film in HDR because why not? So inside DaVinci Resolve, you want to go to File and then go to Project Settings. In there, for the color science, you want to select the DaVinci YRGB Color Managed, which will give you the option for HDR Rec 2020 PQ. And then also the output color space is Rec 2020 ST208 for 1000 nits. Here you can leave it unticked or ticked, but I have it ticked at 1000 nits, which is the same as above. Dolby Vision, we don't need that because for YouTube, and enable HDR10+. Make sure that's ticked and then save that. And then once you've done that, you'll see all the clips in Rec 2020 color instead of the original log flat color, which would look like this. And then for the color grading itself, I didn't actually do much apart from moving the color slightly to the cooler side and reduce the saturation, also turn up the brightness. What took the longest though was actually the sound design. As you can see, there was only a little bit dialogue recorded, but we couldn't get the right kind of onset noise, such as walking through the leaves. So I had to add all the follies in manually. Together with the alien sound and also the music, it took a long time. And then finally, to export HDR, you want to select Format QuickTime Codec H.265. What's important here is make sure you select Embed HDR10 metadata. And then down below here, you want to select Man 10 for the encoding profile. And after that, in advanced settings, I'll just select data levels and video and select those two at the bottom, always ticked, and that's it. One word of warning though, if you're uploading HDR clips, I mean mine's 5 minutes, but it took 12 hours for it to process and show its HDR. Otherwise you're just left with SDR and it just didn't look great. But I gotta say, the wait was worth it. It was just fantastic watching it on HDR device. And that's a wrap. Not quite, but you've reached the end, the very end of this big cinematography masterclass. I want to thank you for purchasing this masterclass, and I hope you have learned a lot from my style, my mistakes, my tips. And you know, it's about practicing. You've heard it so many times in these sections, I've mentioned again and again. Go out there and practice. Sitting and worrying about, don't know how to start, what camera should I get? Making excuses, I can't do it today, do it tomorrow, I just don't know how. You know, just go out there, just make a film. And it doesn't matter if it's bad, embrace your mistakes and learn from them. And that's what I did. That's a lot of people did before they reached the top. You know, I'm not at the top here. I'm just at a stage that I feel like I want to give my knowledge to you guys. and I'm gonna still keep making mistakes, and that's how we all learn. And it's okay if your first film is bad. Like a lot of people said, your first film is guaranteed to be shit, and it will be, because you've never done it before. How can you just be born and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I know how to make a film and make it perfect? It's impossible. It's like a musician, you know. They can say, oh yeah, I've watched operas, I've watched people sing, and now I'm gonna sing for the first time, and it's gonna be perfect. It just doesn't happen, you know. But if you don't do your first, you're never gonna make the mistake. You're never gonna learn. If you don't start, you're never gonna get to that stage when you can enjoy cinematography, enjoy doing the lighting, enjoy moving the camera, enjoy putting that visual art to people so they can watch and feel your creativity. And that's what I love, you know. Once I'm creating something visual and people watch it, they cry, they laugh, and they feel good, they feel bad, they feel scared, and it's how you shot it, it's how you lit the scene, it's how you framed it, and that's an incredible power of a filmmaker, you know. If you've enjoyed learning from this video, I actually have a filmmaking masterclass where I teach from screenwriting to cinematography and all the way to post-production. So you can either tap the link in my bio or comment below with the word learn to get more information.